I dove headfirst into pagan groups, Wicca groups, non-denominational spiritual groups, New Age spirituality, just dove right in because I have friends who are part of it, and this is what I have to say about it. Hello and welcome or welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and if you are returning, thanks for coming back. Now, to give you a bit of context about why I jumped in and why my opinion might be different than some people, is I don't come from a background of Christianity. I don't come from a background of religious trauma or a super religious family or anything like that. I actually grew up with two very spiritually rooted cultures. On my native side, the Dakota, Lakota, the Tewa, to an extent, the Nawa side, I mean, they are recreating their culture the best that they can based on the Tonapohuali, the calendar. But for the most part, at least my Tewa Pueblo side and my Dakota side have a really intact spiritual culture. It's not something that you really convert to, or you wake up one day and decide that you want to start practicing. Sorry, that's my mom. That's Chewbacca mom. If you've seen the video, that's why. So it's not something that you convert to. It's just something that you are Lakota. So therefore you are practicing the spirituality of a Lakota to any extent of how far you want to immerse yourself in it. And the Pennsylvania Dutch side still has very late medieval, early colonial, late medieval, early colonial era folk culture, which is like an echo of Germanic paganism, Norse paganism, kind of along the Anglo-Saxon, in the Germanic sphere, that was preserved by the people who moved to Pennsylvania from the Rhineland and other parts of Germany, mostly the Rhineland. Those things kind of stuck as folk culture practices that are still living today. So it's not really something that you, again, convert to. It's a culture that you're a part of. So therefore you have these certain holidays, feasts, and celebrations that you participate in. That being said, jumping from that into, let's say, neopaganism. Let's start with neopaganism. But you know what? It kind of goes the same for everything. Not the witchcraft, actually. Depends. Okay, let's break this up. Let's first put this into paganism and New Age spirituality. And I'm gonna, should I lump them together? Okay, I'm not. Paganism should be a culture that you are reconnecting to. We have a decolonization movement within the Native American community. And I say Native American, the umbrella term, because if you go all over Indian country on Facebook anyway, or on TikTok or whatever, we are trying to reconnect with our culture, not only preserve the culture, but advance it and kind of remove any colonial influence or religious influence from Christianity that may be altering the authenticity and integrity of our original culture. And I thought when I joined paganism, that's what I would be seeing in these neo-Norse groups, and I mean no hate on anyone. I just think people watch too many episodes of Vikings or something. I don't know, but they don't seem to want to reconnect to a culture. They seem to want to push this spiritual brand or fill this void inside of them with spiritual things, but not necessarily things that are deeply rooted in culture and history. So there was a bit of a disconnect there from me, and I couldn't really participate in it, feeling like this was a really timeless, age-old tradition that has modernized into it felt like an empty shell. It felt, I don't want to say performative. I don't want to take away from people who are participating in it. And please don't take this as religious persecution, because I firmly believe that, there's my Chewbacca mom again. I firmly believe that religious persecution has no place in not only the world, but we never had it in the Americas. We never had holy wars. We never fought over how each other prayed. So if that works for you, do you. This is my opinion, and I don't want you to feel like you have to live up to my standards, okay? By any means. I will sit and bloat with you. I will stand and bloat with you. I will help you do whatever you need to do. I will speak with you. I will participate with you. We're together on that, right? We're together. So that's kind of where I disconnected from the neo-pagan community. Is it was really Hollywood. It was really like performative, and I didn't really feel like it was rooted in anything historical. Not that I want like a historical reenaction. I want folk culture that has evolved and is being revived by people who are reconnecting with the culture or trying to preserve and advance the culture. Now let's jump into New Age spirituality. And this is kind of like the non-denominational, everyone's welcome, it's cultureless. I have a big issue with that because it's not really rooted in anything. It's rooted in, I'm going to pick this and this and this from all these different cultures, and I'm going to do what I want, how I want, because screw it, it's not a culture, it's mine, and I can do what I want with it. To me, it just doesn't sit right, because people know not to do that with Native American stuff. Like they wouldn't get a bunch of eagle feathers, or they wouldn't, get Katsina dolls or anything like that. They know there's a boundary there. But when it comes to picking things from like ancient Egypt or the Far East or European pagan, like indigenous religion, they have no problems just taking whatever they want, taking it out of context and saying, this is mine, I'm doing what I want with it, because screw the culture, screw the people, screw integrity, I'm doing what I want. And I get it, not everyone has that entitled attitude towards it, but that's my perception of it as someone who has cultural root. It's like, you guys are taking things that are very sacred to people who still live out in the country in Ireland, or people who still live out in the country in, Norway or Sweden or something like that. And you're kind of turning it into a mockery. At least the people that I've seen, it just it doesn't sit well with me. And I don't know my place in the like non-denominational spiritual realm. And I'm going to make another video about that, because I have a friend who does those kind of things, and I love her so much. I support her. I just don't know like where I fit. And I'm going to get into that in another video. But that's really what I have to say about like the New Age non-denominational spiritual group. Let's get into the Wicca and witchcraft. Now, Wicca, if you're talking about Gardnerian, whatever, there should be structure there. There should be structure, there should be accountability, there should be community, there should be like this proto-culture of guidelines and rules that are going to structure how you engage in this spiritual path. And as someone who comes from a culture, that's great, right? That's amazing, that's cool. But the problem is, people don't want to be spiritual so much as they want to be anti-Christian. And what I mean by that, and what I touched upon in the beginning of the video, is I don't come from a Christian background, so I didn't have that trauma of dogma of saying you need to do it like this, you need to be like this, you need to behave like this, you need to answer, you need to obey the rules. That exists in Pennsylvania Dutch culture, that exists in my Lakota culture, it exists very much so in my Pueblo culture. There's a lot of rules and things that you can and can't do, can't say, can't wear. And when people leave Christianity and go into spirituality, it's more like a trauma response of saying, I'm going to do what I want and nobody's going to tell me I can't. What I feel ends up happening in those kind of situations is you end up with like this really shallow, almost like spiritual trick or treat or spiritual tourism, or like they're experimenting, trying to find something that works for them. And maybe it does. And if it does, like I said, great, that's awesome. I support you, you do you, and I love it. But for me personally, if I was in that situation, I would feel like I need more roots, like I need culture, like I need something that, if I did it, my ancestors, their ears would perk up a little bit and be like, you're the first person to do that in about 800 years in this family. And now you're doing it again? We recognize this. It looks new, it looks changed, it looks modernized a little bit, but we know what you're doing. We see you. That's roots, that's heritage, that's culture. To me, that's the root of spirituality, is how your ancestors and how the social group where you excuse me, where you came from, where your ancestors come from, how they relate to the natural world. What are their stories? What are their customs? How do they speak to the trees? You know, how do they, well, who's the spirit that lives up in the mountain and what does it bring? Or how do you give reciprocity when you're gathering herbs? Or what's their view on hospitality? Or what holidays do they celebrate that may not be celebrated in mainstream American culture? These are the things that I really look for and try to preserve and practice and carry on in my family, because that's what becomes a tradition. It's not just a spiritual practice that is all about me and what works for me. It's a spiritual practice that serves as a foundation for rebuilding a cultural identity, not just for you, but if you go across the country, they're going to know the same songs. They're going to know the same rituals. They're going to know the same way of offering. They're going to know the same stories. And there's a something special about that you don't get in solitary practitioners or anything like that. Anyways, I'm going to step off my soapbox because I'm sure I've pissed off a lot of people with this video. And by no means do I want you to feel judged. Like I said, this is my perspective. This is how I feel about it. And this is where I'm at in my journey. Who knows, maybe, a year from now, I will be completely 180'd and like head first in some Wicca group. I don't know. I don't. But that's where I am right now. And if you made it this far, thanks so much for listening. Why are you still here? Really? I'll see you next time. Have a good one, everybody. Mach Scoot.